Hi everyone, I'm Abigail. This is Charlotte, and welcome to another Two Kids interview.
Today we are joined by Pura Belpré honor author Jasminne Mendez.
Ms. Mendez is a playwright and poet and author whose books include Night Blooming Jasmine
Islands Apart, and Iana Del Mar jumps in.
and on September 16th, her new book, The Story of My Anger, will hit bookstores.
Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
There is a Toni Morrison quote that you bring up a lot. Can you tell us what that is and how it's impacted you in your writing?
Yes, it's on my website, and I say it. I mention this quote often, and she says, "If there is a book you want to read, then you must write it." And for me, that's pretty much the philosophy with which I go into any writing project. I think about different versions of myself in my life, like when I was 8 years old, 10 years old, 6 years old, 15, 20, whatever it is, and think about what book that version of myself, that Jasmine needed, or what she was going through. And I usually approach projects in that way. I think about, what is it that version of me at that age would have wanted to read, or even now, what is something that I'm really craving and think that is a story that should exist in the world that doesn't. And so that's really how I approach starting new projects. It's how I, go into revising my project and my works and things like that, and saying, I write the books that I want to read because they don't really maybe exist in the world. And so I assume that if I want to read them, then other folks want these stories as well. And I just think it's so important.
A lot of your books come from your own experiences. Do you still need to do research when writing a book?
Oh, yes, so much research. Even just today, I'm working on a project, and there's a scene where the main character has to kill a snake. And I've never killed a snake. So I had to research, like, what happens when you like kill a snake? Like, I don't know, like when and so, or even just like figuring out what kind of snake she was going to kill, right? I was like, oh, it's a garden snake. But then I was like, oh, there's not really garden snakes in this part of the world of where I'm writing from. And so there's always research to do just to make sure that, like, even the way that you're describing the way that something happens is accurate and believable and realistic. Because I don't want my reader to say, no, when, this kind of snake looks like this and you described it as blue and it's really green or whatever, right? And so even when I'm writing from experiences that are personal, there's still things that I have to research. Or there was one book, a memoir that I wrote where I talked about mangoes, and I really wanted to know more about where mangoes came from and what mangoes were called and all these things, just to kind of include some of those details and those ideas in my writing to really make the writing come to life, and again to relate to my readers a little bit more. And boy, I tell you, those research, you can really like go down a rabbit hole and spend hours researching something, and a lot of it sometimes doesn't even end up in the book. It just kind of builds your own knowledge about the topic, and helps you, I think, just describe things better. So I know a lot of random facts about a lot of random things, because of the research that I have done for my books.
Hmm. Your upcoming book, The Story of My Anger, includes the topic of book bans in Texas. There is a definite chance The Story of My Anger could get banned in certain parts of Texas. How would it make you feel if it got banned? And can you talk to us about your feelings on book bans in general?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely when I was writing this book, and then when my editor and my agent said that yes, they thought we should move forward with it. And even now, even before it's come out, I'm already a little nervous that, yeah, it might get banned, not just in Texas, but in other places. We know book bans are happening across the United States. And because it deals with book banning, and because it deals with, a young Black girl who is speaking up and fighting back, and wanting to protect the books that she loves, I think that it will be frustrating. I'm sort of mentally and emotionally preparing myself for if and when that day comes, because I think that books should be available, right, to young people, especially books that are written for young people. Of course, there's material, just like there's TV shows and movies that are not child appropriate. That's not what I write. I'm very aware of who my audience is. I used to be a teacher, and so I know like what's acceptable and what's appropriate in different ways. But some of the reasons that folks are giving for banning books really just don't kind of make a lot of sense to me. And I don't think that they are the reasons why we should be banning books. I don't believe in banning books in general. I think that parents and students and teachers need to have those conversations about what's appropriate for each child. But just because one parent thinks that their child shouldn't read a book doesn't mean that my child shouldn't read that book if I think that that book is okay and appropriate for my specific child. And so, I think it harms our freedom of speech, which should be guaranteed to us by the Constitution. And once we start censoring and banning books, then we start censoring and banning other kinds of language and ideas. And I think that that's very scary. And it's unfortunate that it is happening so much, not only in Texas, but across the United States. Because I think that so many of these stories and these books that they're banning, some of these folks aren't even reading the books before they ban them. They just say, oh, this is about this topic, or oh, there's this kind of character on the cover. I don't want my student to read that. And again, I think that when you limit, those kinds of stories in those books, then oftentimes, different students and their experiences and their lived experiences don't get represented. Or if you say we don't want books by LGBTQ authors, we're banning those, then anybody who identifies as LGBTQ might feel like, oh, is there something wrong with me and with my experience and with my life? And should my existence be banned, right? Like, am I allowed to exist in this world if we can't even read books about my experiences? And so I think it's a scary, frustrating, unfortunate time that we're experiencing. It's not new, but I think the degree and the level to which it's happening is shocking. And that's why I think it's important that books like The Story of My Anger exist to show young people the ways in which they can fight back. Can you change, all the United States in one day or by yourself? No. But can you make a small change in your community, in your neighborhood, in your school? Yes, you can lean on adults. You can create, groups or a petition or speak at your school board or ask the adults in your life to speak up for you and with you if you're kind of scared or you're not sure where to start. I think everyone has a role to play, as I talk a lot about that in The Story of My Anger, and finding kind of what your role is in it. If you're passionate about it, right? If you're passionate about stopping book bans or about raising awareness about them or any other topic or issue that you're passionate about, whether it's the environment or anything else, finding ways that you can make a change and an impact in your local community, in your local school, I think is so important. And that's really another reason why I wrote this book and why I want, to share it with young people.
You live in Texas, but you don't go easy in your upcoming book. Are you worried about trolls at all?
Oh, yes. Oh my gosh. You're like the first person to ask me about that. I am a little concerned. I've had those conversations with my publisher and with my agent. The book isn't out yet. So right now, all of my profiles are public and are available for folks to see on my social media. But I will be slowly kind of cleaning things out that kind of will protect me and my family and that will keep me safer online in those online spaces, as well as sort of just kind of scrubbing the internet of where I live and my phone number and those things, because I know now you can find just about anybody's information online. And so I want to be sure that I'm taking the measures that I can take to protect myself and my family, and also just not engaging. I love to be online. I love to share what I'm going through as a writer. I love to talk about my experiences with book events and when I visit schools and things like that. And I don't want to put anyone in harm's way, and I also just don't really like that negativity. So if there are trolls, delete and block are my friends, because I don't want to engage in sort of, those sort of unnecessary back and forth, because I'm not probably going to change anybody's mind and I'm not going to get angry over someone else's opinion of my work. I'm simply just going to be like, all right, conversation over, delete and block and keep it moving, because I want to create, an online space that is positive, that is, and that is there to help people move them to action, not to bicker or to bully me or anyone else. And so, yeah, I'm nervous about it, but I'm doing what I can to protect myself if that, comes to pass.
When you've done school visits, what was the most meaningful interaction you had with a child?
Oh man, that's a good one. What is the most meaningful interaction I've had with a child? I think, I mean, it's so hard to pick just one. I mean, I think honestly, any of the times, so I'm going to kind of give a non-answer here, but I think that any of the times where I've been at schools where a student has told me, because I work with several organizations that are able to buy copies of my books for the students that I visit, so students don't have to purchase them, but the organization is able to provide a copy of the book either to a whole class or to a whole grade level. And so the times where I have been at a school where a student is just like holds my book in their hand and they're like, oh, I've never owned my own book, or I've never been able to like buy or take home my own book. And like, this is mine. Like, I get to take this home. And it still gives me chills. Like, they just get so excited, and to see their faces light up and to see them get so excited that they get to own their very own copy of a book, because, their parents can't afford it, or they're just not able to, or, it's like, it's just so wonderful. And it makes me so emotional every time, because that is something really special. I remember the only way that I was ever able to afford books was we would go to yard sales, garage sales, and if they had like the Babysitters Club series in paperback, and they would sell them for like 25 cents or 50 cents, or sometimes the library would have like a book sale, and if it was under $1, like my parents would be like, yeah, grab one or two, and then I would have those books. So I had like a small little stack of Babysitters Club books at home, because it was really all we could afford. But my dad was always reading. We were always at the library. So the library, is your friend. But even that, is sometimes inaccessible to some students. And so the times where I've gone to schools and kids have been able to walk away with a copy of my book and they just get so excited, those are really meaningful to me.
Do you have any story you wanted to tell for a long time but haven't figured out how to do it yet?
Ooh, yeah. Not a kid story. So I've been talking with this about with my friends, like, because I haven't written adult fiction ever. But there's a story about like a woman who wants to be a stand-up comedian that I wanted to write, but I just can't like figure it out. Because I have all these like really bad jokes running through my mind all the time. And I'm like, well, if I just put him into the voice of a character and she's the bad comedian, no one will be like, Jasmine, you're a really bad comedian. I could just blame it on the character and be like, oh, I wrote those bad jokes on purpose. And so, but I just haven't figured out like what her life story is, but I know like I really want to do this. So that's one for sure that I've been trying to kind of figure out and see if I don't know if it'll ever happen, but it's in my brain. It's just not on paper.
That would sound like a good book.
Rejection and failure is a part of most authors' stories. Can you tell us about that part of your journey?
Yeah, definitely. It's like I always tell folks, I think that you just kind of you have to sort of get used to rejection, as weird as that sounds. But I've definitely had, times where I've written something, been really excited, and then I submit it to a publisher, an editor, or my agent, and it's like crickets, or it's like an immediate like, no thanks. Or it's like, okay, revise this and this and this and this. And then I feel like, oh, I have to start over, or like, oh, this isn't even good, or oh, why did I even start this? And I think for me, it's just so important to kind of silence all that like negative talk and silence all of those things that can really bring you down and keep you from moving forward, and just focus on what is the story that I want to tell, what is the emotion or the feeling or the ideas that I want to express, and do my best to share those in the best way that I know how, and I feel like regardless of whether something gets published or not, writing is a practice. And even if that book never sees the light of day, it was good for my practice. It was good for me to challenge myself to write that book, to tell that story, because I learned something in the process, right? I have written about three different, maybe four different picture book biographies. So they're ideally, they would become picture books, but they're about a biography about a particular person. None of them have been picked up. I have like nobody wants them. I'm just like, oh, what am I doing wrong? I don't know. But I loved being able to learn about the individuals that I was researching. I loved challenging myself to try a new genre. I'm not saying they will never get published. I kind of just put them off to the side right now. I hope to come back to them because I'm really excited about some of them. And maybe the timing just wasn't right. So I always try to tell myself there's so many different layers that go into publishing beyond just me writing what I love to write, because I know that writing and publishing are two separate things. Writing is the art form, publishing is a business. And unfortunately, if what you want to write and publish isn't what sells right now, then you're probably going to get a lot of no's, unfortunately, right? And that's just sort of the nature of the business. But that doesn't stop me from writing. I also like to have like multiple projects going on at one time, because that way if I'm waiting to hear back if something got accepted or rejected, I can still have something else that I'm still excited about, right, that I know that is just for me, that's just for fun, that nobody's waiting on, that no one can tell me is terrible, and I can just write it for fun. And that also helps kind of keep me balanced between the rejection, and also like sometimes I eat my feelings. Like I'll have some ice cream and I'll get upset and like hug my husband and like, be sad because I got rejected, and that's normal and that's okay. But I don't let it stop me from like keeping, to like continuing to write, and from just, telling my stories as best as I can. Because if no one else, my daughter and my husband will hear them. So, so there's that. Yeah.
When you have a subject that you decide you want to write about, have you ever started writing for one age group and then realized it may actually work better for a different age group?
100%. Yes. I'm dealing with that right now, actually. There is a book that has gone through several different versions. It first started off as a picture book. It was one of my picture book biographies, actually. Sent it to a bunch of different publishers, and they all said the same thing. They said, oh, we think this would work better as a middle grade or a YA novel. And I was like, you're giving me more work. But I was like, okay. So I scratched it and I re-outlined it. And in my mind, it was going to be a middle grade novel. And then after like multiple 2 or 3, maybe even 4 revisions with my editor, now we both agree that it's probably a young adult novel. So so I'm like, oh, okay, so it went all the way, and it's historical fiction, and some of the material is a bit heavy. And so I think that it just feels more appropriate for it to be aged up a little bit higher based on some of the subject matter. And so it's young adult. So the protagonist is about 14, 15 years old. So she's not like 16, 17, 18. She's like a little bit younger than that. But it's still young adult. And so that's where it is, like, unfortunately. But I think it'll better suit the story if it's young adult rather than picture book or middle grade. So, yeah.
What do you consider the youngest people reading young adult novels?
Good question. I think depending on the subject matter of the YA book, because there's a wide range of YA genres as well, like fantasy, sci-fi, romance, all of contemporary fiction, realistic fiction, which is what I write. I think the youngest is probably 12, 13. But I could be wrong. I don't know if younger than that are reading YA. And those are situations where I'm gonna be like, oh, does your parent know? And like, what is this YA book about specifically? That, because there are some YA that I think a 10, 11-year-old could totally get into and it would be fine, and it's definitely age appropriate as long as like you can read the words and the vocabulary isn't too advanced for you, those kinds of things. As far as subject matter, I think there are some that are appropriate and then some that I'm like, maybe wait a couple years. So you have the maturity level to kind of comprehend it and that kind of thing. But yeah, I think maybe 12 would be the youngest for YA.
Maybe I'm 12.
You're
Authors go
12?
to
Oh my gosh, I thought you were younger.
nobody thinks I'm 12. It's fine. Authors go to conferences and often become friends with other authors. What is the most fun or funny story you have with another author?
Oh, oh my goodness. Okay, well, this isn't funny necessarily, but it's like it's fun, I guess. So I don't know if you know the author Andrea Beatriz Arango. She wrote something like Home.
We
She
interviewed
wrote
her.
Eva Elise Explains It All. Yeah.
We interviewed her.
So she's a really yeah, she's a really good friend of mine. She's Puerto Rican, I'm Dominican. And so for the last Texas Library Association conference, which happened just now in March, I believe, we planned coordinating outfits. So I don't know if that's fun for anybody, but we got on the phone and we were like, "Oh, I have that dress," and I was like, because I'd seen her post a picture about of a dress that she wore at another event, and I was like, "Oh my God, I have that same dress, but in blue," and hers was in green. And so then we coordinated because we were going to be on a panel together talking about our upcoming books, and we're like, "What if we were matching outfits?" And we're like, "Okay," and so she wore her green dress that's just like mine. I wore my blue dress, and we coordinated outfits and had a really fun time being twinsies at a panel at American Library Association. So that's probably like, the most fun kind of experience I've had with another author that I can think of at the moment. I'm sure I've had others, but that's the first one that comes to mind.
What writer has the most influence on you?
Ooh, that's a good one. Um, I mean, it's a tie. Again, this is a non-answer. This is a tie between Toni Morrison and Maya Angelou. Um, because those were probably the first two like Black women writers that I read, and probably Maya Angelou slightly above Toni Morrison, because I've always loved her poetry. I used to memorize her poetry when I was in high school, and I just love her work.
Finally, it's time for our Turbo 10.
10 rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
Yes.
Number 1. What is your favorite phrase to use?
Oh, um, my favorite phrase to use. Oh my God, why don't I? Why don't I have anything off the top of my head? Like a slang phrase or like
Any phrase.
any phrase, any phrase. Um, I'm tired. Sorry. I say that way too much. I'm tired.
Number 2. What is one subject you love to learn more about?
Ooh, what I'd love to learn more about. Flowers and gardening.
Number 3. What is your go-to snack food?
Mm. Um, I really like pita chips and like cheese dip. There's like this Alouette creamy cheese dip. I love that stuff.
Number 4. What was your favorite book growing up?
I hate this question. The Giver and Bridge to Terabithia.
Number 5. If you could teleport somewhere right now, where would you go?
Um, I would go to right now. Where do I want to be right now? I want to go to Europe. I really want to go back to Europe. I've been twice, but it's been many, many years. So I would love just Europe and anywhere in Europe. I want to be dropped into Europe right now.
Number
Number 6. If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
One what?
Superpower.
Ooh, ooh, ooh. Hmm. I would say one superpower. There's so many good ones. Um, I was gonna say almost teleportation, but no, invisibility. Invisibility.
Number 7. What was your favorite cartoon as a kid?
Okay, I don't know if y'all know this. Animaniacs. It's time
I
for
I I watched
Animaniacs.
I watched the reboot of that, and I really like Animaniacs.
Number 8. What is your favorite rainy day activity?
Ooh. I love crafts, like coloring and crafts. Anything that's just like creative coloring. I'm into scrapbooking, so anything that's just like cutting, pasting, collage art. Yeah, crafting.
Number 9. If you could have any three dinner guests, who would they be?
Three dinner guests. Oh, dead or alive?
No rules. It can even be a
No.
cartoon character or fiction or anything like that. It could be one of your characters.
Ooh, that's a good one. Okay, I hadn't thought of that. Okay, then I would say Toni Morrison. um, Aniana, who was the protagonist to my middle grade novel, because I just think she's the coolest. Um, oh, I can't. I have to. I don't know if you can see behind me. Frida Kahlo. Obsessed. I'm obsessed with Frida, so I would want to have her for dinner. So, yes, those three.
Number 10. What is the best piece of advice you were ever given?
Mm, mm. On any subject, like on anything, like in life? Okay. Um, Honestly, it seems really basic, but nothing stays the same. Everything changes. So take it one moment, one day at a time, and if you wait long enough, it'll change. And I think that's just helped me get through some really hard and stressful, frustrating times, knowing that it won't last forever, and I just have to just wait it out, keep moving forward. Yeah.
You were awesome. Thank you so much for doing
Thank,
that. And thank you
thank you.
so
You
much.
guys are awesome. Thank you. And thank you for yes, for highlighting my book. I appreciate y'all so much. And I hope that, y'all continue doing this good work because we need to share writers and books with the world. So
Thank you.